And welcome to another episode of Live 605. I'm your host, Con Kazantzidis, aka Shave the Man, and I have to say that. Why? Because tonight, local time 605, we are streaming to the Stray Whisker YouTube page, as well as the Shave the Man YouTube page and or channel. Welcome to those of you who are here for the very first time. And if you are, put a new below in the comments. I've decided that because the group chat is a little bit buggy, that I'm going to stay well away from it because people were either not comfortable with, allowing Facebook permission or whatever the case was, whatever it was. Look, it was a mess in the end. Fancy getting people to click on links when you're wanting them to watch what you've got to say. I thank you for watching, incidentally, because I know that this is, it's dinner time for a lot of people here in Australia, but it's probably also bedtime for those who are, the other side of the world. A big cheerio to those who are new. Melinda. Welcome, Melinda. Welcome to the very first live. For you, that is. Maybe somebody else has been watching lives in your household. I don't know. It's very nice to see you again. Stephen Carter, g'day. Mr. Con, Mrs. Carter, both tuning in tonight. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Carter. It's always nice to have both of you watching this live stream, although it mystifies me as to why you would do it. Anyway, folks have whatever floats your boat, I guess. Speaking of floating my boat and floating boats, I'm going to dip into some espresso. It's become a tradition now. I was going to change up the beverages, but I thought, no, what's the point? I may as well just drink espresso. And I'm sleep deprived as it is, so why not just add to the excitement? So this is my short black, and I'm about to get into it now. Let us know where you are from. If you're new here, I'd really appreciate it if you just let us know where you're from. It helps to, just builds excitement. We know whether I should be saying good morning, good evening, guten Nacht, kalimera, buongiorno, and all the rest of it. A big cheerio to our friends on the Facebook page. I really appreciate you tuning in. It's always a delight and a pleasure. Well, enough of that. Enough of the greetings. Hello, John. Just as I said, enough of the greetings, John comes on. Let's get stuck into tonight's topic. It's an interesting one because it's, you may have noticed if you've been watching these lives, that I sort of try and dive a little bit deeper into facets of wet shaving, but also grooming and other things as well. And tonight in particular, I want to investigate this whole idea of razor blades going blunt. Everything that's sharp eventually goes blunt, but this is something that has intrigued many people, lots of wet shavers, why certain blades go for longer than others, why you have to toss out a cheap blade very quickly, and blades such as the feather, for example, just keep on keeping on. They're very sharp to begin with. Some find them uncomfortable, and then they can generally outperform in terms of longevity, not in terms of comfort, not in terms of performance. In terms of longevity, they tend to outperform most other razors that are available on the market. And we'll have a look at that, and we'll have a look at why that might be the case. This is a question that's not only perplexed me and a lot of aficionados out there, but it's also perplexed scientists. In fact, scientists at MIT, no less, at the Faculty of Materials Science and Engineering. This is their gig, you see. This is what they do. They look at metals, they look at metallurgy, they look at why metals behave the way they do under certain stressors, why certain chemicals affect metals, why certain surfaces, might affect a metal. And let's face it, all razor blades are metal, or they should be. If they're not, you're doing something wrong. Or if you're not using a metal razor blade, what kind of blade are you using? Let me know in the comments. put a comment below and let me know. So this is a question that scientists came to, let's face it, scientists and people that work in universities do all sorts of interesting research. And this would have been a topic that probably came up, a conversation in a tea room somewhere. Said, listen, have you found that your blades are getting through these blades a lot faster? Incidentally, I should say that when they conducted this study a couple of years ago, it's a couple of years ago now, they were referring primarily to cartridge razor blades. But this can be applied to your traditional double-edged blade as well. I keep showing feather. Maybe I should show a shark. There you go. There you go. This is the shark. So they looked at it and they said, right, there's got to be a science behind this. Of course there is, as there is with most things in life. So they determined what it was that they were going to test and what sort of materials they were going to use, primarily an electron microscope, and see what this looks like up close and personal. So there's a professor, I think his name was Chem Tassan was his name, Professor Chem Tassan from MIT, United States, and his sidekick. It's not very PC these days, is it? Call him a sidekick. The person that sat next to the good professor, Gianluca Roschioli, came up with this experiment where they wanted to see what a blade looked like under an electron microscope as it was cutting the hair. Of course, what they thought was happening was that with every edge, that as you use an edge over and over again, that it shortens in a very, very minute way. In other words, you're kind of wearing the blade away. This is not what they found, though. It's intriguing, isn't it? This is not what they found. They expected to find that, but this is not exactly what they found. And so this has very, very interesting implications for razor comfort and why some razor blades are good and others not so good, and why they vary wildly between users. Okay, so we often said this, one person's trash is another person's treasure. And we'll have a look at that this evening. But before we do that, I need to hydrate. It's been quite chilly here today, but I still find the need to hydrate. Must be the air conditioning at work, I don't know. Excuse me a moment. So, what were the things that they discovered? Well, it's very interesting. The first thing they discovered was that the angle of the blade, when it meets the whisker or the hair, makes a difference. Say that again. The angle at which the blade meets the whisker makes a difference. That's interesting, isn't it? We keep talking about angles all the time. And in a cartridge razor, the angle is kind of fixed. I mean, it sits there and that's that. It's set in its little plasticky casing, which I'm pleased to say can now be recycled fully through TerraCycle. But it sits in at a fixed angle. So obviously hair doesn't grow at a fixed angle. So this is why some folks say cartridge razors are the best thing since sliced bread, and others say these things mess my face up or they're not very comfortable. Okay, it depends on where the angle at which your hair meets the blade. So that was the first thing they discovered, and I'll bring up some, you know me, I'm quite graphic. I'll bring up some graphics just to show you exactly what this looks like under an electron microscope, no less. The other thing they found was that these materials contained minuscule cracks to begin with. Brand new razor, right? Brand new razor blade, brand new. Okay, let me pull one out. This has not been used, brand new. And if we magnify this, we'll find that it is not in fact an ultra smooth edge. Did we really need a scientific study, an in-depth study to determine this? I don't know. I mean, it's fairly obvious that nothing is absolutely positively perfect. So they found that there were these little cracks or minuscule little chips to begin with. And this was the process, this came about as they honed the blade, as they honed the metal. So these metal, they punched these razors out. There's some interesting videos you can have a look at on YouTube. You can Google it later. Don't Google it now. Not now, later. Right? Not now. Now you stay here, later you can do the other thing. And they come out on a ribbon, they punch them out, and then they have to sharpen them. Sharpening or honing will produce these very, 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 very small chips, these little C-shaped chips. In other words, you can imagine a blade and there's little chips out of it, right? And it's brand new, hasn't been used yet. Now, if the honing process and the finishing process, in other words, the coating that they put on afterwards, usually a carbon-based coating or Teflon or platinum, isn't spot on, then you're going to get a really, really subpar shave. Why? Because the blade itself hasn't been honed effectively and efficiently. The third thing they found in these blades were that the metal alloy that these blades are made of wasn't uniform. In other words, this thing may have been, should pick up the blade again, shouldn't I? Just to demonstrate it. I'm going to cut myself, I know this, but I'll try not to. The blade itself, if I can find it, here it is, was in one part of the blade, let's say at this end, might have been okay, but as you move across, the metal, the integrity of the metal changes. There's a different zone in the metal, if you like. So that would also contribute to its efficacy or lack thereof. Now, interestingly, this group from the MIT has a provisional patent, I read, and I'll share that article with you in the post below. They have a provisional patent on trying to, which I would have thought was obvious, trying to create as uniform as possible the alloy that these blades are made of. In other words, a lot of these blades aren't made up of, there's a lot of chromium in them, of course, and you've got carbon steel and all the rest of it, but they're not, the quality assurance, should we say, is not where it should be. So that will definitely produce some issues. Well, speaking of issues, I need to share some issues with you. And here is the first diagram I can show you of this electron microscope cutting it. And we give credit to Gianluca Roschioli. You'll see the blade approaching the hair. It looks kind of gross. It looks like, you know what it reminds me of? Dune. Remember that movie Dune? With Sting. Sting was in it, and a few others. I think they're doing a remake of it. Anyway, but you'll see the blade is there are already these little striations in the blade, and if I wasn't so mean, I'd stop the video just so as you can see the little rough edges. But at that magnification, you can see that it's not dead straight. There are little bumps and nicks and things that are out of it. Right, so it's not a perfectly straight edge, okay, and this is going to cause discomfort. The other video I'd love to share with you is when they actually measured this. This was a measurable thing. You can see they put it on a high citron thing, and they measured it. And the little thing you see on the side there is the camera that they used, and they showed that as it was cutting through the hair, it was actually changing, altering, I should say, the integrity of the blade. Okay, so there it is. There's your excitement for the evening, a bit of video. You don't have to look at my mug alone. You can also watch electron microscope images of it. Hello, Robert. Robert, nice to see you on the live. Time for some espresso. So this then... Craig. Hello, Craig. It's nice to have you here, sir. And Dave. Dave's a friend. See what I did there? Sorry. Okay, I'm not going to do dad jokes. Hi, Rad. Yes, greetings. Where is he? Greetings. He's in Melbourne, I believe. Anyway, greetings to one and all. Nice to see you on the live, Rad. So this is the thing. When people say... a razor blade's a razor blade. Yes, it might be a razor blade by name. There are differences in the quality of the blade, and those differences we can now see have to do with the way the blade is honed. In other words, is the factory that is manufacturing this blade honing this blade to perfection? Are they doing us a service and really making sure that the grinding wheels that are doing, because let's face it, they're not sitting there on stones. They're using a mass production line where they're honing this on a stone. Make sure that they change that out frequently. Make sure that it's not because remember, of course, also with these metal blades, they're also tempered. They don't just put out any steel. They've got to temper them. They cool them. They heat them up to very, very high temperatures, and they cool them rapidly. So there's a whole process that goes on, and then the sharpening occurs. Now, if that process hasn't been done properly and there aren't quality checks along the way, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get this sort of pitting and these little chips that are out of it. So that's the first thing. Obviously, the coating is a very, very important thing. Coating the blade with either platinum or Teflon, various other carbon-based coatings will assist in that, and try and minimise those cracks, because they're the things that are going to cause the problem. And of course, then the differences in the metal zone. All right, all of that stuff is kind of out of our hands. You buy a pack of Astras and you just hope for the best. You think that, I'm going to try and hope that these blades are good. And they mostly are. Most razor blades are good, but they can and do cause discomfort. That's why you need to find the blade that works for you. And once you find it, stay with it for a while, okay? This whole thing of, I'm trying 58 different blades. Stop. Learn the blade, work with the blade, have it, use it with different soaps, have a quick, I shouldn't really be saying this, but have a quicker than normal shave and see whether that's irritated you. Take note, is this thing ready to chuck out after the first or the second use? I'd like to know, how many times do you use your blade before you discard? This whole rule of I use anywhere between 3 to 5 might be true for Astras, but when I use a feather, I'm not chucking it out after 5. And that's not because these are a little bit more expensive. It's because this starts to become a very sweet shave after the second and subsequent shaves, for me, right? Now, those little chips and cracks, those minuscule chips and cracks that occur when viewed under a microscope may not be as prevalent in a razor blade where they've spent time coating it and honing it and preparing it for the consumer. So, do you get what you pay for with razor blades? Maybe, yes. I know that if you're buying, it's not even worth mentioning names, but if you're buying blades that have either been branded or whatever, there may be some issues there, right? Don't blame the brand if they've branded their own razor blades. I mean, I've even looked at it. Is it worth branding your own blades? No. What's the point? What's the point? There's enough blades out there. You don't need me to come in and produce more blades. The other reason I wouldn't do it is because I can't guarantee the quality of those blades. You use them, you say, these are terrible, rubbish. Well, I'm not going to use this. This is ripped up my face. So be very, very mindful of those things. So again, it's a variables game. It's something that's very, very important. It's quite subjective. Going back to the feather, I would definitely not throw it away after 5. I'd even, feather, I'm getting 7+, and I shave daily. Absolutely. Yep. Very, very easy to get a 7+ out of a feather. There was a gentleman on YouTube that pushed this to about 20, I think actually about 30, he probably pushed them to about 30 shaves. Admittedly, he was taking it out and then honing. Why would you bother? But anyway, it was an academic exercise. Look, it kind of it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to consider. But with the Astras beyond 5, and they're out the door. In fact, I probably take them to about 3, and then that's it. But what I will never ever do is just use a blade once and then throw it. And the reason for that is that I'm kind of half expecting that I'm not going to get a true indication of what this blade is like after one use. You're just not. I mean, you're not. And there are variations. For example, in a pack of 100 blades, it is quite possible that you could get 10 duds in 100. There are blade brands that you could get 30 duds in 100. Right? Why is this happening? Well, if we consider the things that I just mentioned, you've got those minuscule cracks, the production quality is not there, how they hone the blade, that's not the QA, the quality assurance and quality control isn't on par with what it should be with other brands, and that you've got metals that have come from God knows where, melted coat hangers or the bottom of tables or whatever. I don't know where they're getting this metal from. I think it's one of those things. G'day, Phil. Okay, above the tie slant razor with feather blades, I have about 10 shaves. Yeah, look, that's probably about right. I reckon anything sort of 7 to 10 is definitely where I would go with that. Nice to see you on the live, Phil. So give them more than one go, but just watch those things. The other thing I want to talk about very briefly, which I mentioned earlier, was the angle of the blade. And this is the thing that kind of messes around with how comfortable it might feel. If you're using a cartridge razor, I know it pivots, but essentially the blade is a fixed angle. And Procter & Gamble and other companies, Schick and all the rest of them, have in their wisdom or studies or whatever it is, well-funded studies I might add, have found that there's about a 30-degree angle, a fixed angle, at where the cartridge razor works optimally. Now, whether that's true or not, I do not know, and I don't know whether the good folks at MIT know this, but this is one of my arguments for using a safety razor. You're the angle. You're the angle person. You're doing the angles, right? There's no fixed angle. It's what you're doing, okay? And you can control that a little bit. It's one of those things that's very, very important, giving yourself control. Who was that? Oh, there they are. Good to see you back on YT. Too fast. That's right. Thank you, Too Fast. In fact, you were a little too fast of you to join us. Okay. Hello. Hi. Escape 49. You see, this is all YouTube now. Everyone comes on here with, whatever names. Anyway, let us know. Sorry I'm late. Glad I made some of it. Yes, look, please, I'll be accepting notes. Late note next time. I've already received a late note from who shall not be mentioned. For me, blade choice depends on the razor. Yes, there is definitely some validity in that. For example, and I'll just use an Astra again because it seems to be readily available and a lot of people have them. An Astra in one razor could be, a very good shave, and in another one could be really ordinary. I know for a fact that when you use a mild razor, for example, Feather has the ASD2, beautiful piece of kit, lovely razor. It's quite expensive, or some of the other stainless steel razors that are quite mild. I would not go with anything other than a Feather. Why? Because it's very, very sharp, and because of this quality assurance stuff. Try not to skimp on the blades, and once you find a blade or blades, 3 or 4 or whatever it is, like Matt said, test them in different razors. It does make a difference. It is a thing. It's a real thing. Okay, and also, as the MIT scientists have said, it's the angle at which you come to your whiskers with, and that also depends on things like the razor itself, the very precise tolerance or imprecise tolerances. Sad to say, some safety razors are shocking. They're sort of all out of kilter and all the rest of it. So if you've got something that's got a fairly precise tolerance, fairly even gap, you should get a fairly consistent instrument to use with your various blades. And then once you dial that in and you know that this particular razor goes with that blade, you're home and hosed. Let's see if there are any other comments there. Yes, absolutely. The 6CS is happy with most blades. I'd have to agree with you. Find the razor that works for you, and then once you fiddle around a little bit with the different blades, look, I've got to tell you, the feather makes an appearance in most. You're not going to believe this. Ladies love feathers, right? They're sharp. They're shaving their legs, and this thing just goes. And I don't hear of any complaints. People don't send any messages saying, "Oh my God, what is this stuff? What have you sent me?" But I have heard from gentlemen, because they're shaving their face, "Oh no, they're a bit rough for me. I just don't know if this is, I like them. I want to like them. I like the idea of them. I like the idea of the Japanese making a really, really high quality, very sharp stainless steel blade, but they're not really for me." I get that as well, but there were suggestions in other places on the internet that you should take out a feather and then use a cork and just give it a once over. Please don't do that. Just be mindful that first shave on a feather, she may bite, and then second and subsequent, there is no better thing. What else have we got in terms of comments here? Steve, yes, most razors and blade combos seem to be very personal, but when it comes to the carve and Gillette 7 o'clock, everyone I know hates the comment. Yes. Are you throwing barbs at someone, Steve? Yeah, look, I tell you what, I used a treat once, a TREET. It was a blade made in Pakistan. Oh, most people I spoke to hated it. Oh, bloody treats. What are you getting into these treats? They're horrible. They're awful. And so I needed to have an opinion on them because I just needed to have an opinion on them. I just wanted to see what it was. And look, they weren't the best razor blade I'd used, but they certainly weren't the worst. So I don't know. Stick to what works for you. I think that's the name of the game. There is some very precise science that's being done. It's interesting to see that these guys at MIT now have put in a provisional patent to try and create a metal. Remember, these guys come from a material engineering and an engineering and materials metallurgy background. So they want to get the metal just right. They think that's an important part. It's one of those things. Get those things right, and you'll find that your blade should be great. Well, I think that's it for me. I think it's time to go. Before I go, Matt says, like the tried and tested Simpson combo, Euromax and GC. Well, there you go. Yeah. Let us know. But those plastic packs, why? Yeah, John, did you need to mention that? Now I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I don't know why. And if they certainly are a fixed angle, those plastic Bics or whatever I don't know what they're called. You know the ones. You buy them in packs of 20 or 30, and it's just one of those horrible scenarios. Not throwing shade at all. I know about 4 guys who've tried the carve yellow. I disliked it. Okay, you are throwing shade, Stephen. Stop throwing shade, and start spreading some rose love to all and sundry out there. Yes, for our ADF personnel, they'd know about plastic razors. Please stay clear of those and use a proper safety razor, particularly if you need to shave every day. Unless, of course, you're in the Navy and you to do other things through the course of the day. The feather packs. Yes. So, but those plastic packs, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, they've undone all the good work. See, I know the practicality is that this becomes a blade bank. So you put, you take out the blades, you put them in there. I have a sneaking suspicion they're going to look at that, or they are looking at that. You can imagine they've probably produced millions of these plastic little packs that they put them in. And once they run out, they'll come out with another solution. There's also there's a razor that's come out of Korea, which is paper. Thing is recyclable. Yes, rose, Stephen, rose. We love a rose. All right. that's it for tonight. Thank you, folks. Thanks for joining in. We've almost exceeded our quota of 30 minutes. I really appreciate you tuning in, and we'll definitely see you in the next live. Bye-bye.